good food has the power to change the world, especially through nutrition and access. And speaking of changing the world, you've mentored a lot of people. So we're going to get into what we call our mentor moment now. This is brought to us by San Pellegrino Young Chefs Academy, where it's all about mentorship. So who we know about a lot of the chefs that have come through the family meal at Blue Hill and the Blue Hill at Stone Barns Kitchen, all the chefs from your family tree, your genealogy. But who is a chef that was a mentor to you and played a role in your career?
Well, the chef David Boulay, and I ended up sort of later in my career after I cooked in a bunch of restaurants, ended up there, and it was so different. The kitchen was a chaotic, absolute bananas organization. Actually, that's me now today. This thing, he had a menu, but he would just go off on his own. You never knew what the menu was. He was changing it constantly during the night. We were doing 240 covers, 200 covers, 220 covers. It was brutal with 20 courses, and it was very high pressure, but it was a high wire act. And it was an amazing experience to be a part of a genius. I think he's a genius. It's just a genius with flavor, with combining flavors. I've never seen anyone. I've worked with incredible chefs, both worked for them and worked with them. I've never seen anyone like Boulay put together ingredients as it was otherworldly. He would pick this and that and put in a blender, and anyone can do that, and it tastes like shit. But on TV, you're like, oh, this. But the things were just like, they would make you weep. I mean, every night was like that with him, and it was high octane, to me, it came at the right moment in my career. I think if I had that happen early, I don't know that I would have been very intimidated, but I actually gravitated towards it. And I created the tempo of the kitchen, and the audible nature of it is what I inherited that. And I'm grateful to him. He died last year, unfortunately, a terrible early death of what I think is a genius and who really never got his due. By the way, you talk about people who he mentoring, if you look at American chefs, everybody went through there.
Yeah, I worked for Bill Kim, and he was one of Boulay's sous chefs.
That's right. Yeah,
and he used to say the same thing. When Bill worked for great people, he worked for Charlie Trotter, he worked for Jean Blanchet, he worked for Susanna Fu, like all these incredible chefs. But he said Boulay, like that was one of those that just like was so different and so transformative. And just like the stuff he was doing with flavors, and just like he was so ahead of the game that it was crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
And I think that's just like a name that's like not, it's one of those ones that's like, for like young cooks today, like, do they even know that name?
Joe, I literally asked my cooks the other day, like, Boulay, and everyone looked at me like, who's Boulay?
Right.
I was like, oh, man.
You couldn't have a conversation about food and not talk about David Boulay when I was coming up in kitchens.
Right?
Him and Gray Coons.
The two of them.
I feel like younger chefs just know Gray Coons because of the Coon spoon.
Right. They don't know that's a chef. They have no idea that's a chef.
Right.
They have no idea that's a chef.
It's like, oh, Michael Jordan was a basketball player. It's not just a shoe line. Like, oh my God.
Them finding out Gray Coons is a chef is like them. If they found out, they're like, oh, Le Creuset was the most famous French chef of all time. You know what I mean? They're like, I never met Chef Le.
You guys are funny, man. That's great. That's really funny.
My